Facebook, Zoom, participants, viewers of the live stream. Welcome back to the Social Vision Conferences, Day 3. You're tuned in right now to the 12:15 to 12:45 session, Reflections with the Social Vision Authors. So you're looking at them. I'll say a brief word about who we are and how this motley crew came together for this unusual project, and a quick thank you to everyone who's participated so far. Some amazing discussions which you can look at on the Social Vision Facebook page and review the videos. Definitely worth taking a look at. And also to stick around with us as we still have more sessions to come at 1 o'clock and at 2 o'clock. So quickly, Eli Rubin, pictured with the headphones and the glasses and the slight British accent, is, or I'm told it's supposed to be English, he's closing his eyes in horror, is an editor and research writer at Chabad.org. He is also working on his PhD in the Department of Hebrew and Jewish Studies at University College London. His research on Chabad encompasses thought, literature, and history, and focuses especially on the significance of the Kabbalistic concept of Tzimtzum. So perhaps we'll hear more about that. I'm Michael Wexler, writer and former professor of writing, adjunct professor at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I'm the author of 7 books and certain other not so illustrious projects, including Social Vision. This gentleman to my left is Dr. Philip Wexler. He is the executive director of the Institute of Jewish Spirituality and Society. I'm reading from my cheat sheet, although I do know who he is. And emeritus professor of sociology of education at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where he held the Unterberg Chair, excuse me, I'm sorry, Heinz, in Jewish social and educational history. And we also happen to be related in some ways. He's my father. And that's a brief description of us. So without further ado, based on some of the conversations that we've had so far in the conference, and even if you haven't heard any of those conversations, Eli is going to say a few words on behalf of the authors that sort of comment on, I guess, what we were after in Social Vision and some of the responses that we've had. I'm sure Philip will chime in. Eli is going to give the response because Philip has been, has had some health problems during the writing of the book, which we'll talk about more later when we get into the process section, but he's feeling good now. And so we're all here. And I'm interested to hear Eli's introduction.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Philip, especially for all the hours, days, years that we've spent in conversation together, and for all the knowledge that you've shared with me, for your perspective and your invaluable insight. There's so much that I've learned from my participation in your project. And I thank everyone who participated in this conference. It's been a really rich opportunity for me personally to reflect on the book, on the key concerns, I think, Philip, on the one hand, of the Rebbe, and that concern me. And Michael said that I'm speaking on behalf of others, but really I want to speak on behalf of myself. And I want to frame these remarks by first noting the rather ambiguous place I hold in this forum. On the one hand, collaborator in the book and listed on cover alongside Philip, beneath Philip in the small print. On the other hand, I am not Wexler. And this ambiguous place affords me a perspective that can perhaps offer some clarity into some of the other issues that have been raised over the last couple of days. Specifically, to disambiguate another homogenization that seems to have emerged for some who read this book, namely the homogenization of Philip Wexler's social and social vision of subject, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, To state the obvious, Philip Wexler is not Lubavitcher Rebbe. I want to say something about tension and creativity, which have been some of the core focal points of discussion the last couple of days, and then I'll return to this tension between Philip and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Much of the discussion amongst participants in this conference has focused tensions in the Rebbe's thought, in his theology and in the way he lived and applied that theology in the world. These tensions are many. In addition to the question of the particular and the universal, the one spirit, precedent and progress, the affirmation of eternal truth in changing times, questions of difference and equality as relating to gender and economics, and in the Hasidim often use and Giloi, essence and revelation. These are not incidental, but rather central and generative of the Rebbe's creativity. Parenthetically, tension and creativity can also be central themes in Elliot Wolf's work, generally. Naftali Lowenthal's recent book, Mysticism Beyond Modernity, which emphasizes the holding together of opposites. And Lahdel Ben Chaim L'Chaim mentioned the recently departed Ada Rapport Albert's volume, studies essays, gender and history, which especially brings the dynamic between student and progress into focus. Now, because these tensions are inherent, the creativity does not outdo the tension. On the contrary, these tensions remain, yeah.
I'm very sorry to cut you off a little bit, but you're cutting in and out, just so you know, and I don't know if there's anything from your end that's possible. If not, we can just keep going, but I just wanted to let you know that we're hearing most of what you're saying, but it's cutting in and out a little bit.
Do you want me to call in on the phone? Do you think that will work?
That would actually be great if you could, yeah, just for the audio sake.
Okay.
Do you have that?
Can I do that again?
I'm gonna, the link that you got this morning should have a call part in it. Denise, is that true?
I think so, yes. Or you could use your phone as a hotspot. I don't know if that would help.
Sorry about that.
Let's see. Okay, so if I call this number, I need to enter a meeting ID. Do you have that information or should I go on?
I think that was SV 2020.
On the thing that we sent out this morning, Denise, there's a webinar ID. Is that what it's asking for, Ellie?
Let's see.
It's asking for the meeting ID.
Okay, it hung up on me. Okay, I think I should continue and hopefully the issues will resolve themselves.
Okay.
Is it still going in and out? Can you hear me now?
You're still going in and out for us.
Okay.
And I'll send you in the chat the number and the passcode. Maybe that will help, okay?
Okay. Okay. Sorry, everyone.
Can I give you a US number?
Yeah. So
Ellie, I just messaged you the
okay.
meeting ID, and then this is the passcode. Sorry about this, everyone. It should be resolved shortly.
Okay, 0932.
Enter your participant ID followed by pound.
Okay.
Please enter the meeting pass followed by pound.
Okay, I've joined the meeting as an attendee, so I guess I need to be operated so that you can hear me.
Yeah, okay, here.
Okay, and I'm gonna turn the speaker off.
Try that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Here, try to turn this, I'm gonna unmute your phone and then mute your video. You're still muted on your phone. I asked to unmute. I don't know if something pops up for you. Sorry about this, everyone. Ellie,
My phone is muted. I don't know why.
I just sent an ask to unmute. Oh, here. Oh no. Unmute. Okay, I think we should just push ahead because it's doesn't seem to want to work.
Okay,
Sorry
so as I was saying, the tensions in the Rebbe's thought are inherent, and the creativity does not ultimately undo that tension. On the contrary, these tensions remain the fecund ground for constant recreation and renewal within the same set of axiomatic tensions. I would argue that without the inhibiting tensions, there would be no creative novelty, no growth, and hence no endurance. Now, I want to use these two terms, tension and creativity, as a way of distinguishing between the subject of social vision on the one hand, that is, and the author of this on the other hand, that is Philip Wexler. I believe that the Rebbe was committed to these tensions, but as far as I have been able to ascertain, and we've had many long discussions and we worked together on this in a very close way, Philip is not committed to these tensions. What interests Philip is not the tensions, but the creativity that they produce and the ways in which that creativity can be extended both in interpreting the Rebbe's own words and, perhaps more importantly for Philip, in rethinking the broader questions about how society works and how it can be engineered better. Of course, Philip is interested in what the Rebbe did or did not say about a particular issue or another, especially where there is an explicit dimension, whether theoretical or practical. More centrally, Philip is interested in the fecundity of the Rebbe's way of and of his mode of practice as a leader. I stress way and mode. That is, interested in what the Rebbe did or did not achieve, more interested in the alternative paradigm that can be excavated from the Rebbe's teachings and work. He's interested in what can be used or appropriated to articulate an alternative set of social categories that can then be more reapplied beyond the confines of a study on the Lubavitcher Rebbe or even Hasidism and religion more generally. To use a phrase from the book of Proverbs, give to the one person and he will become yet better, he will produce additional wisdom. Now, the distinction I want to draw, in addition to the distinction between myself and Philip and between Philip and the Rebbe, we should also distinguish between the Rebbe's teachings, thought and vision, and the way that Hasidim within the Chabad community interpret and apply those teachings. This is not to say that there's no correlation between them, but rather that they are far from identical. As someone who has a perspective from within the community, I think that most contemporary Chabadniks would readily admit that their efforts are a very inadequate approximation of what the Rebbe really expects from them. And such an admission is one that I myself make. In the spirit of Elul, a month dedicated in part to honest reflection and accounting of where one stands in relation to God, in relation to one's fellows, and in relation to the world. In my view, moreover, we should not limit the significance of the Rebbe's words to accord with the narrow ways they were understood at the time that they were first spoken, nor by the particular ways that they may be interpreted subsequently, even by authoritative teachers within the community. This is not to say that such interpretations are irrelevant or insignificant, but rather that they should not be imposed as reductive conclusions after which nothing further can be said. I justify this argument on the basis of the Rebbe's own complex approach to the received corpus of the teachings of his predecessors and on his emphasis of the imperative to innovate in Torah l'chadish, Indeed, the hard work of careful intertextual reading, interpreting one text in light of others in the same corpus, and thereby extending and expanding the significance of a formulation beyond its original circumscriptions, is well established in the Chabad tradition, and is especially evident in the work of the Rebbe's predecessor and namesake, the third Rebbe of Chabad, the Tzemach Tzedek. In the specific context of coming to new understandings of extant teachings with the advantage of increased hindsight, the Rebbe cited the Talmudic aphorism, Lekoi inish adati derabe ad arboin shnin, a person doesn't apprehend the intent of his teacher till 40 years have passed. In one instance, referring to the words of his own Rebbe and predecessor Rayatz, and appropriating language from a discourse by the fifth Rebbe of Chabad, Rashab, the Rebbe read this as an imperative to exert oneself, paying attention, and I quote, to the general concepts and to the specific words. Only then does one arrive at the depth of his inner intention, the essence of his wisdom, atzmut chachmato. Elsewhere, he spoke of this in more pedagogical terms, focusing on the respective duties of master and disciple in negotiating the intellectual gap that divides them, and the need to transfer wisdom across that gap. Again, I quote, the ultimate goal of the learning is that in the end, the student should apprehend the intent of his teacher, that's using the language of the Talmud, although in his current estate, he is not yet within the boundary of understanding the intent of his teacher. Therefore, the teacher must communicate to the student a limited idea, and the word here is masumsa, that is in accord with the intellect of the student, and the depth of the intellect, hasechal, is, on the teacher's part, is concealed within the limited idea communicated to the student. So we have this dynamic of concealment within the revelation. On the part of the student, however, there must be a movement to go out of the limitations and confines of his intellect, to raise up his intellect to the intellect of the teacher, which is an entirely different form of intellect. End quote. That's from the Kutei Sichos, volume 17, page 73. Having made these methodological remarks, I want to return to the theme of creativity and renewal, especially as it relates to the New Year Rosh Hashanah, which occurs in just over a week from today. One of the central themes in the Chabad discourse on Rosh Hashanah is expressed in an epistle appended to the vitality of created existence, epistle 14, quote, the vitality of created existence renews with a light that is utterly new, Or Chodosh Mamash, each and every year. For the light of each year is withdrawn to its root on each Rosh Hashanah Eve, and afterwards, by means of the shofar blast and the prayers, a new supernal light is drawn from an even loftier station. End quote. Now, there is a huge literature on this very radical idea and its many different implications. Indeed, the teachings of Hasidism would themselves be identified with the drawing forth of new light, as in the Rebbe's famous Kuntris Inyana Shateres HaChasidus, translated into English by Susan Handelman. But here I just want to make 2 points, one about creativity and the other about tension. For point 1, I want to draw attention to the Rosh Hashanah discourse of the fifth Rebbe, Rashab, delivered in 1905. This is the first installment of his very important serialization, known as Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Tafrei Samach Vav. There he takes up the most fundamental cosmological question: why? What is the purpose of existence? In earlier Chabad discourse, we have a notion that the purpose is to return the created world to the primordial state in which all possible being is sublimated within the infinite radiance of the divine essence. That radiance was initially withdrawn in order to allow cosmological space for a world in which individual consciousness is possible. Through specific forms of human activity, as in the case of the shofar blowing, this withdrawal is understood to be reversed. So it's a return to the original primordial state. And Elliot Wolfson has a wonderful and wide-ranging article about this conception, titled Achronic Time, Messianic Expectation, and the Secret of the Leap in Chabad. But here in this discourse from 1905, Rashab offers a new response to the question why, and it's not about return to the primordial state in which the world was saturated with the primordial luminescence of the essence. Rather, the purpose is that, quote, that there should be the revelation of a supernal light, the primordial light, that the interiority and essence of the infinite radiance should shine, as will be explained. And later in this serialization, he explicitly uses the terminology, an utter new light, a light that is utterly new. The full articulation of the explanation takes up 60 subsequent discourses over the course of more than 2 years. Now, what is important here is that Rashab predicates the entire purpose of existence on the imperative to reveal the divine essence in a manner that is entirely new. This notion, moreover, is very explicitly operative in all of the Rebbe's formal discourses, the Mamarim, and to a lesser extent in his informal talks as well. This is what he is pointed to each time he refers to the elicitation of the divine essence, Hamshachas Ha'atzmos, as the ultimate telos at the core of all religious activity, indeed at the core of all activity. Coming to the end here, I know that time is short, especially since we interrupted, and yet, here too there is a tension, for ultimately each new iteration of the essence is also already encompassed within the essence, or in the terminology used in a Rosh Hashanah discourse by Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, each new year is already encompassed in the primordial 6 days of creation, each of which encompasses one of the 6 millennia in its entirety. Likewise, Rosh Hashanah itself encompasses the entirely new recreation of reality that will occur anew on each day of the new year. To quote from the above-mentioned article by Eli Wolfson, in Chabad, the futurity is expressed, the sense of futurity is expressed as the present that is resuscitated each moment as that which is simultaneously ancient and invented. I'll conclude with something that I once heard from my teacher, Rabbi Elimelech Sfil of blessed memory. Many of Rabbi Shneur Zalman's discourses, especially as published in the canonical compendia Torah Or and Likutei Torah, begin with the question, why did the soul descend into the body? In response to which, a complex, creative, mystical, theological, and hermeneutical interpretation is offered to endow embodied being with meaning. Yet, in the very next discourse, the question might well be asked again. Yesterday or last week, the answer was an answer, but the eternal question now begs to be asked with the same urgency all over again. Back to you, Michael and Philip.
Thanks, Eli. Couldn't quite hear you with your internet in and out, but I think we were able to glean. It was very mystical. We were able to glean, I think, the gist of what you're saying.
I'm going to post the written paper on my academia website.
Okay.
Maybe we could put it on the Facebook page as well, so that people can
that sounds
see
great.
what I said. Sorry.
It's okay. I think one of the interesting things about the conference was the conversation and the debate between whether the thoughts of Rabbi Schneerson were indeed universal or whether they were specific to Judaism. I think that was a running theme. And I guess I just wanted to say that with all due respect to all the other panelists, in some ways, I don't want to say that's missing the mark, but I guess the question is, what ideas can we draw from the wisdom of Jewish mysticism as embodied by Rabbi Schneerson to inform a new paradigm, rather than simply debating his intentions. But anyway, that's probably for another panel. I guess I just wanted to, we don't have a lot of time today, and we have another panel coming up at 1. I just wanted to say a quick word about process, and then we'll see what Philip has to say, and ask Eli, what was the process like for you? For me, it was very interesting being my job was to try to kind of translate these two gentlemen into English. I guess you got a taste of what that would be like in the project. And we were sort of a motley crew, Eli being Chabad and on the mystical side, Philip, a sociology professor, and me, I guess you could call it a popular writer, not that anyone understands what I'm talking about either. And so Eli, what was it like for you working with this motley crew? And I guess I could ask myself the same question, and then we'll let Philip give some final remarks.
Well, as I mentioned in my remarks earlier, Philip and I have been having these conversations since, I think, 2012. A lot of the book was kind of in our heads, in one way or another. We were having in the study, there was a time when I was coming to Philadelphia once every 2 weeks to spend a day just but we read Weber, and we read the American philosopher Willie, and we, at one point, I think Philip was thinking of doing something about the American transcendentalist tradition, Hasidism. But at a point, it became very clear that we were going to be writing a book, which in the original title, which was the kind of joke between us, was Weber and the Hasid. At a later point, it became
Sounds
the
like
focus
a
on
big
prophecy. Weber and the Hasidim.
Yeah.
So it was a very enriching process for me, and I learned. It really, Philip, opened for me a whole new theoretical world and gave me a whole new set of tools to think about these things. And in a way, Philip is an inspiration. The whole book, and really was, on the one hand, it was a process of many years. On the other hand, the outline of the book was written by Philip, dictated really in one afternoon, from beginning to end. And much of that language from that original, Philip talking, scribbling it down on a yellow pad, is in the book in its original form. And the work of writing the book was really that just to end the argument. Philip was already dividing it into chapters. We didn't end up with those chapters exactly in the final product, but it was I have never written a book before. So Philip has written many, many books. And without Philip, I think now, in addition to the theoretical dimension of it, I think it was also very valuable for me on the technical side, the skills to write and to write at length, an expansive argument, and to be part of that was really, like I said, very, very enriching and valuable for me. Philip.
Great.
I'm only sorry that that due to Philip's illness, we're not able to, the ability for Philip to communicate himself has been curtailed to some degree, and we're not able, unfortunately, to, hopefully we will soon again be able to hear Philip himself, and at least now we can hear something from him. We're all is.
Do you have any final comments you want to make?
Well, it's impossible to say anything so briefly and shortly. I can't say anything quietly and quickly the way he can.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have ideas. And I think the ideas that we have are ideas that are not easily assimilable. They're not easily put together like other ideas. And it's funny that they put them together. And they say this is an assembly, and we have these in assembly, or we have these in a reassembly. There's no such thing as an assembly or a reassembly. This is an assembly that is put together, and therefore put together is not being put together. So it's, in other words, it's an assembly that's put together from various kinds of information. And we can do that. I think we can do it, but it's going to take a long time. Frankly, I love these guys and so on, but to see them putting themselves together and thinking themselves together and putting themselves back together, it's kind of absurd. I don't see themselves putting themselves together. They're putting themselves separate. And then they put themselves back together. And then, oh, yes, that's us. We put ourselves back together. It's a long time to put ourselves back together. And I think we have to work at that. And work at that means working at putting yourself together.
Well, I think I understood that as well. And so on that note, for everybody who tuned in, thank you. Not exactly the clearest panel of the day, but I think...
Michael, in the last minute, you want to say something about the book cover and the process about that? In the last few minutes, do you want to say something about the book cover and the process behind that?
Well, I think, we're going to have another talk on September 13th at the panel in London. I think we can get more into the book cover then, just because we're running a little bit out of time. I guess I wanted to conclude, that is an interesting conversation, because coming to agree on the book cover was a bit of an odyssey, and we can talk more about process. I'd love to talk more about process another time, because writing a book with 3 people and 6 other, advisors was something I've never done before. I've written a book with 1 person, which was hard enough. That's another story, because I just want to get everyone ready for the 1 o'clock session. 1 to 2 p.m. coming up is going to be Social Vision and Love, which should be very interesting. I'll be moderating that, and it's going to be featuring Moshe Halbertal from Hebrew University and Yotam Hotam from the University of Haifa. And Jonah will be happy with me, Ellie, for staying on schedule. And you can rewatch this session over and over again on